So thank you very much. I welcome you again, and normally I would say that I'm happy to see you here, but today I'm happy to see you, but not because for the reasons why we are here. The 7th of October, I think, has changed really a lot. Where we all hoped always that there would be a kind of process that could lead to a peaceful living together, was broken in the most brutal way possible by Hamas terrorists. And when I saw the pictures, I think everybody who saw these pictures and has a kind of human feeling inside, these pictures never will go again. If you have spoken, because I've spoken with some of these women, then you really see what has happened to these families and how the families are suffering, and how they were dreaming every night of this nightmare that happened to their families. Because if you have ever experienced this kind of violence, the pictures never will leave your brain again. And this is something that I think that a lot of people don't know or try to ignore. Secondly, I never thought that when I was entering here in the European Parliament, I was a former education minister, and I thought that everybody must agree in the European Union that pupils should be treated in a way that they learn to be peaceful, to be tolerant, to accept other religions, to learn how to behave into a peaceful, democratic society of freedom, and with a justice system that is for everybody equal and for every person equal. And then I experienced that there are books existing, IT programs existing, digital systems existing, where pupils are taught totally different things. I saw it in the committee in the fight against terrorism, where I saw for the first time this kind of Islamistic books for children. How to teach a 4-year-old children to be violent against a person that is not in line with your ideological, religious, extremist thinking. So Jewish people, Jewish women have no rights. So they are not normal human beings. And if you see these kind of books illustrated with images, then you learn that there are these kind of films existing. And then you're asking where to receive these kind of films. And then a specialist told me, come with me, let's go to the bibliothèque. You will find it. This is not possible. This cannot be allowed into our states. This kind of teaching, of books, of films, of videos is disseminated all over Europe in the different member states. Everybody knows it, but nobody does anything against it. So for me, this is one of the first steps that has to be taken. We have to teach the children. And to be quite frankly, we discussed it with UNRWA, and UNRWA was saying, yes, we're totally against this kind of books. And I said, why are they then used in the schools? How to try to help children to accept that there is an Israel state, that there are Jewish, that there are other religions, that there are Christians, Buddhists, whatever, Hindus, that there are different beliefs. UNRWA said yes, they would have now a digitalized program, and the books were not as ugly as I would see it. Then I took one of these books, and the first thing that I found in was that the terrorists that were killing brutally the Jewish athletes in 1972 were heroes for the fight for free Palestine. And I thought, listen, can this be true? That we are terrorizing terrorists, having killed people? And if I take it in the line to the 7th of October, I got a very bad impression about the treatment of the case that the UN did, I have to say. Yes, we are in favor of having an organization like UN, but it was a painfully long silence of the UN feminist organizations, and even of the UN itself. Yes. And now there is this report after a very painful long silence. I would expect of the High Representative of the European Union to express very clearly that there was sexual, brutal violence against Israeli women. This should be dealt by the High Representative of the European Union, to be clear and to be frank. And what I had the feeling, normally, if there is any kind of violence or harassment against women, there are so many feminist organizations normally that they are very outspoken, producing headlines and whatever, and about sometimes minor things, sometimes bigger things, sometimes important things. But I didn't hear anything about Israeli women. I didn't hear anything about the dead women, about the kind of torture, about the kind of how the Hamas terrorists and Islamistic terrorists believe that they can use women's body for their kind of their brutal thinking and extremist and radical thinking, where Israeli women are not normal human beings. They are just instruments for their kind of extremism and for their kind of goals. They don't see the women's crying, they don't see the suffer of the women. What I would really expect of this European Parliament either, and you, dear Tona, you know what I'm talking about, I'm quite outspoken about this. I have a family member that lived for a long time in Israel, and I cannot imagine if, for example, my niece would have gone to this music festival, running away from these brutal terrorists. So if you haven't felt this personally in your family, you cannot imagine what this means to the families. Or, for example, to know what has happened to them, because they cannot speak anymore when they were brought then to those who were taking care of the parts of their body. They have no voices anymore. We have to be their voices. And I'm frustrated that there are sometimes some women here in this parliament, because they believe that they are fight for Palestinians. Okay, you can fight for Palestine. Okay, you can have the opinion that you have to have a wish for Palestine. But this should not include that you are not outspoken if there is brutal violence against Israeli women. Every woman should fight together with us. Whatever political opinion we have, whatever criticism we have to Israel or whatever, but this is not acceptable. This kind of how this is dealt is not acceptable. And I would expect from all women organizations that they are clearly and outspoken saying that this kind of Islamistic mistreatment of women, and if you see in other wars, you see very often that women are victims of brutal sexual violence. Not only in this case, this is a method of terrorists and of certain war strategies. So this is why I explicitly asked UN, I explicitly asked the High Representative to be outspoken together with us in this area, and together with you all, the first step must be to release all the women, all the hostages. This is the first step of the procedure, not the second, the third, or whenever step. This is the first step. And secondly, second step for me is for a peaceful cooperation. I'm not against UNRWA itself. I'm against this kind of UNRWA, to be frank. We need an international organization. But the UN should not be one-sided, but should be the EU is the biggest donor of the UN. Then UN should respect our rules either. And we should have the possibility really to have the control over it. So thank you very much for this conference that we have together. And as I'm really very aligned, I have a lot of Israeli women that are friends. And may I say, they are tough women. I really love them. One of them has contributed to the goal explicitly that, for example, in Munich, and we had a huge debate in Munich, because there were one part of the Jewish community said, oh, to create a synagogue in the middle of the city, this could be very dangerous, because we are always in danger. We should go more into the background because we fear for our life. And Mrs. Knobloch's opinion was, no, we have to go into the middle. Our synagogue was in the middle, absolutely in the center of Munich. And if it's necessary to have protection, we will do that. But Jewish community, since a long, long, long time, was part of the Bavarian community, of the Munich community. And we want to see Jewish life in the middle of our city. As we see churches, as we see other religions, as we see other beliefs, they have the right to do so, and I hope one day that no protection will be needed anymore. Let's work for this.